Hey you, welcome back to the channel. And guys, today we're going to review Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Movie's been out a few months now. This will be a spoiler-filled review, so I'm hoping that you guys have already saw the movie. And want to give my thoughts here on the movie, talk about what we got in the movie, and get into why the audience was so divided with this movie. Marvel scripts have been quite interesting. When I look at Guardians of the Galaxy in comparison to many of the other movies from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Guardians of the Galaxy almost just seem to be in a department of their own. It's very Guardians is very comic, well, it's beyond just comic booky. It's kind of wacky. It's kind of wacky, but it's very entertaining. And I labeled movies like Guardians of the Galaxy in my popcorn movie area. But it's kind of strange to me that although this is it's wacky and it's very comic booky, the stories are actually just very entertaining. And something has to be given credit for that. A lot of people like Guardians of the Galaxy. And, I've had issues with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Marvel has a talent for producing these very entertaining, very, I would say, complicated to put on screen films. Every time Marvel comes out with, some of these movies, like even back when they did Thor, I was just very, interested to see what they were going to do with these movies. Like how were they going to adapt them to put them on screen. And Thor was a great surprise. It was directed by Kenneth Branagh. They did an excellent job with Thor, a movie I thought was going to be quite difficult to do. And I think Marvel has this talent, basically, of taking these very fantastical films, yet giving them very human elements. Like with the Thor movies, we got to see that the movie was about two brothers that were divided but was still very much family, and so I think Guardians of the Galaxy, even though they have these very wacky colors and various fantastical things we see on screen, there's very human elements to the movie that's able to get us to care about the characters and all this crazy stuff that's going on. So they've done an excellent job of that. And some people are saying that this Guardians they don't like as much as the first Guardians. The first Guardians, for me, I enjoyed. The first Guardians, I enjoyed. The second Guardian, to me, they pretty much fit in the same category. And I guess I could say I enjoyed them equally well. They fit together as a as a continual story. Now some people feel like they went back, they double dipped, on this film, basically, just giving us more wackiness of what we saw in the first film. And that's just the nature of these Guardians of the Galaxy movies. They're going down the far reaches of space and doing all this weird stuff. My only problem so far with what what we're getting with this type of movie, and we talk about the Infinity Wars that are coming up soon and various things like that. Where does Guardians of the Galaxy fit? I know they fit the story, but when you compare a movie like this to Captain America and the Thor movies, it almost seems like Guardians of the Galaxy can exist in its own universe, like it just does not fit what's going on with Captain America and various films like that. And the kind of movies that I really like to enjoy is a lot of the social and political commentary we get with these comic book films. There was a time, still there's a time, still goes on now, where in the comic book world, it, addressed a lot of issues that were part of the real world. And it was pretty much dealing with real life things, but it was just told in this fantastical story. And a lot of other comic book films through Marvel have done that, but I just don't think Guardians reaches that level. I think Guardians is just a fun film that just happens to exist in the other Marvel movies universes, but I don't know if they fit well together, So the Guardians, even though the stories are tied together, I just don't think Guardian really works well, when they get around, Captain America, Black Panther, Spider-Man, and then you go to Guardians, and it's just like total craziness, but entertaining. It doesn't fail to be entertaining. So anyway, let's just talk about a little bit about what we got in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So, we know the story had a lot to do with Star-Lord, Peter Quill, meeting his father, who's played by Kurt Russell. And Kurt Russell, we find out, is the planet Ego. And that he's a Celestial. And if you're familiar with the comics, you know that the Celestials were these immortal beings at the dawn of time that pretty much created the universe and other species and various things like that. And so we get to find out that this celestial being, Ego, is actually basically the biological father, for lack of a better word, of Star-Lord. And I was just trying to figure out how they were going to do this, and they actually did a good job at it. With how they presented Kurt Russell as the planet Ego, right? That he was just able to manifest himself into human form from the components and elements of the planet he was, and then able to send himself out to various parts of the galaxy and implant parts of his, his essence and being on these other planets, and it would grow on these other planets, and then he could expand through these other planets throughout the galaxy by doing this. And so the movie is about his goal being to expand all over the universe, and basically trying to carry on his legacy by mating with other humanoid beings throughout the galaxy in order to produce this capable of his legacy celestial child, to kind of to carry things on. And this is where Peter Quill comes in, or Star-Lord comes in. So that's pretty much the main story that's going on. Him meeting, Star-Lord meeting his father. As we got to see. Now, I just want to talk about what we got, with Kurt Russell playing Ego in his human manifestation when he first arrives in the early 80s in America, and he begins this romantic relationship with Star-Lord's mom. They used this awesome CGI. I mean, it's just, I think I said this on another movie I reviewed, Rogue One, when they did Grand Moff Tarkin, or the late Peter Cushing, who's no longer living. But the CGI was so good that it looked like Peter Cushing was standing there still on screen. But not only that, in Rogue One, Peter Cushing, his CGI version had more screen time than his real life acting versions in the Star Wars franchise. But it's crazy because with CGI this great, do you even need the do you even need the actors? Because I'm under the assumption that the CGI is only going to get a lot better, and so I mean the actors won't even really need to show up. You know, maybe they could just do voice work, and maybe they could get, you know, paid less money than they get out of studios. You know, it's just crazy how good they've gotten. But you know, as the story progresses on, we get this race of beings called the Sovereign, and you know, we're basically getting them needing a special, I believe they refer to them as some type of special batteries, some special element or object that they need the Guardians of the Galaxy to secure. But you know, Rocket Raccoon, you know, being Rocket Raccoon and not liking their attitudes, thinking they're a very pompous and arrogant group of beings, as they are these kind of genetically perfect beings, and they're also perfect jerks. So Rocket Raccoon, you know, as we got to see, he didn't like that. So basically what he did was he actually ended up stealing the stuff they were meant to secure from them. And so, you know, we get them being, you know, creating this enemy with this this super race of beings called the Sovereign, is chasing them throughout the galaxy, various things like that. But we also really get to understand, you know, through the movie, who Star-Lord was. You know, we got the understanding that not only was he the son of the planet Ego, but that, you know, this answered all the questions why he was able to hold this Infinity Stone without being destroyed. You know, as we knew, Star-Lord was half human, he's half some type of alien, but he's actually half celestial, or like half God. You know, celestials being these, you know, as I mentioned earlier, these immortal beings that pretty much, you know, started the universe and various things like that. But you know, we got Baby Groot, we got, you know, basically guys, we got everything we got in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. So if you like Guardians of the Galaxy 1, you know, if you really like that, if you really like the wacky parts of Guardians of the Galaxy 1, you would love this film. You would love this film. But the thing was, the story became kind of convoluted with this mixture of wackiness, and because this was could have been a really good film, a really good, so probably one of the best superhero films. I think in you know, in an attempt to pretty much, you know, give people what they enjoyed in the first one, you know, trying to satisfy maybe your audience. I think it worked against them in this film, and I think that's why the audience is so divided, because there were really great parts of this movie, and then they mix all this wackiness in, and it just would seem like they just mix it in for no reason, and the wackiness would come out of nowhere. Not only that, but they just, you know, it was just too much of it. It was just too wacky. And when I say wacky, you know, basically just talking about it being just this cartoon. You know, like how you ever turn on a Nickelodeon, and you know, you're sitting up there with you know, maybe some of your children or nieces or nephews or very young audience, and Nickelodeon just has these crazy wacky cartoons that are just ridiculous. And this is how this is what this movie had in it. You know, it was just very wacky, and that's why I say I have a very difficult time placing Guardians of the Galaxy within the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you know, especially how they latch all these various stories together. But a very good popcorn movie, you know, very entertaining movie. I can't stress enough that this is entertaining. You know, this is one of the movies where you are entertained. You don't get bored or anything like that. Your sensory perception of this movie is going to be, you know, wow scenes. You know, you're going to always be drawn into it. But as far as the continuity of the Infinity Wars goes, and their connection with the rest of the movies, I just feel like this movie is just an entire different universe, how it's written and how it's done, although they exist in the universe. It's kind of like, for the comic book readers, the Howard the Duck film, that came out in the comic, the Howard the Duck comics. Howard the Duck belongs to the Marvel universe. But Howard the Duck, although he belongs to the Marvel universe, he doesn't really fit well with the other Marvel characters. And that's how I feel about the Guardians. I feel Howard the Duck fits good with the Guardians, and Howard the Duck does appear, briefly in the movie. He's having a drink, at a bar. But everybody who's seen the Howard the Duck movie, the one they did in the 80s that everybody hated and talked bad about, that I didn't think was bad, but I just didn't think it really fit the comic books or fit in the Marvel universe. But the people who watch the movie and understand the wackiness and the zaniness of Howard the Duck, it kind of can understand how I'm expressing how I feel about a lot of things they do in Guardians of the Galaxy. But if this movie just was kind of in its own universe, I would say it's an awesome movie. But again, fitting it in with the rest of the Marvel storyline, for me, just doesn't work at all. But anyway, let's move along. So what we got, basically finding out Ego, was a villain. Where he was a super villain, and he was an immortal villain. But he presented himself as this charismatic father that really loved not only Star-Lord but his mom. And of course we got to find out that none of that was true. That his goal was to pretty much span. Now, that was his main goal, and that he found that his love for pretty much basically Star-Lord and his mom was going to more viewed as a distraction, as a weakness to accomplish his goal, to expand throughout the universe, to be one of the big celestials like eternity. And so that, that was just too human, too imperfect. So, he basically, becomes villainous. He puts a tumor in the mom's head to stop him from having this weakness of experiencing love, as I understood, my perception of what I got from the film, him returning back to Earth. And he actually is the reason why Star-Lord mom dies. And, of course, we got to see Star-Lord's reaction to that. And this is when he starts to rebel against Ego. And all through the movie, we kind of seen them finally bond. And, it's this very touching scene where Ego creates this energetic ball, which he's able to toss. They're playing a game of catch, like fathers and sons do. And this is their first time doing it. And so we're really drawing into Kurt Russell's portrayal of the planet Ego and where they're going with that. But we get to find out that it's all an act, it's a means to an end, and that the planet Ego needs Star-Lord because he's the only one of his children that can that has the genetics to manipulate the planetary energy, the light, as it's referred to. So, we get these very emotional scenes between this representation of a father that Peter Quill or Star-Lord's always been looking for, and this amazing acting by Michael Rooker, who plays Yondu, and really him turning out to really be Star-Lord's father. He says, he has this very great line in the movie where he says that, Planet Ego is his father, but he's not your daddy. Because, we find out that Yondu through the movie was the one who was responsible for bringing all of the Planet Ego's children back to him, in which Planet Ego, very heinous way, very atrocious way, is killing all his children. And Yondu, this is what actually causes Yondu's fall from grace, is he's breaking the code with the Ravagers, who basically at one time were led by I believe his name is Statagor. I could be saying his name wrong. I didn't really know of him until the comics, until after the movie. But he had saved, according to the comic books, he had saved Yondu early on from the Kree Empire. He was a slave of the Kree Empire, and Yondu breaks the code. But we get in the end of the movie that Yondu redeems himself by sacrificing himself, for Star-Lord to save him as he's battling in the final scenes, battling his father, Planet Ego, in order to, stop his plan of expanding through the galaxy and, destroying them and the Guardians of the Galaxy who are on the planet, within him, and they find a brain inside, the planet. So, guys, like I said, I was just surprisingly entertained with this movie. Like I was saying in the beginning of the review, of all the Guardian movies, I've never really, guys, I've just never really taken the Guardians of the Galaxy serious with the other Marvel movies. I've always found the Guardian movie, popcorn movie, good matinee movie, good fun movie to take my family to, take your kids to. But, its connection to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Infinity Wars, even though they're out there in space, I think these Guardians of the Galaxy movies, they could have had some of that oneness in it that everybody liked. But I think especially going into the second movie where they should have gradually toned down some of the wackiness to make it fit more going forward with the Marvel Cinematic Universe to do the Infinity War. Instead of toning down the wackiness, they just went berserk with it, and it just became this functioning cartoon, Nickelodeon cartoon. And I didn't like that part of it at all. And it's a real shame because this could have really been a great movie. So, wasn't a great movie, but a very entertaining movie. If you want a fun movie that you can't take serious, in the comic book Marvel's going at this point, because when you try to mix this again with Captain Iron Man, and you got the Guardians of the Galaxy doing all this stuff, I think you're going to run into a problem. But if you can get past that, yeah, it's a fun movie. It's a fun cartoon animated CGI field movie. And even in the beginning sequence, when they're battling this octopus creature, alien creature, you get that beyond over the top wackiness again. Something that I was hoping they would have toned down a lot. In certain parts of it is great, but I think this is actually hurting them. We always get these very famous post-credit scenes in these Marvel movies, and we got what a lot of people believe to be the Adam Warlock story. A perfect, perfect specimen created by, in the movie, it's being done by the Sovereign, but I believe they're called something else in the comic books. But what we know about Warlock is, he's basically a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, or he becomes a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, at some point. But the way it seems it's going to be done, he will be their enemies going on, and hope, and maybe he will turn. But it's a very interesting character, very powerful character, and he's going to be, his cocoon is shown in the post-credit scenes, done by the Sovereign, who, of course, we got to see where these gold, creatures, skinned creatures, and, he comes from them, and, at some points in the comics, I believe he controls, I believe it's the Soul Gem, so, maybe we'll get him controlling, one of the Infinity Stones, but, at this point, we don't don't know if he's going to be in the Infinity War movies or, you know, how they're going to do that. So speculate he'll probably just end up being in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 because it is confirmed there will be a Guardians of the Galaxy 3. My only hope, guys, is that maybe they learn from this one and they tone down some of the wackiness because there have been some division. I haven't checked the Rotten Tomatoes score yet on Guardians so far, but I know there's been a lot of division in this movie versus the first one, and some people just didn't enjoy it quite as much, and I enjoyed it about the same as the first one. You know, they both were surprisingly entertaining to me because I generally do not really you know, these kind of interpretations of movies don't really pull me in much. I'm very much interested personally in how to translate these characters in the comics into a real life setting is basically what you get with a live action film, and I want to know how to fit in and react in a real life world. And I just feel like Guardians just puts a comic book and a cartoon on screen. And, you know, besides it just being really good animation, good graphics, it's just that. So I think that's why I haven't really been drawn to Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, so much. But guys, I was entertained. You know, it's a good popcorn movie. Marvel is very good at that. I don't think Marvel's writing is in the scope of DC's writing. I think DC's writing and stories more what I'm connected to. But I think the Captain America storyline and the Black Panther storyline would be more in league with the type of Marvel movies I like to see. But I was entertained, guys. I can't take that away. Will I watch this movie again? I don't really have a desire to watch it again. So, you know, that tells me that, you know, it wasn't a great movie for me, but it was a entertaining movie, you know. And I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed my time. I didn't feel my time was wasted. So, guys, that's my review on Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Tell me what you thought about it. Tell me, you know, if you liked it, if you want to see it continue doing what it did in this movie. You know, being this over-the-top wackiness, which seems to have worked well for the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, or do you want to see it toned down a little and try to get more in line with being able to fit in with the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as it goes into the Infinity War movies? But anyway, guys, if you like content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, guys, take care.